afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the quarterfinal round, room 2 of the Zone 32nd Architectural Student Workshop's first ever debate competition beyond. So congratulations, we made it. Today's match is between Team Talos from Taylor's University and UITM Series Kandar. The motion for today's debate is this House believes that unpaid internship should be against the law. Now we will be determining the government and opposition sides for both teams by using a coin toss. So for Taylor's University, if the coin lands on heads, the team will be acting as the government. If it lands on tails, the team will be acting as the opposition. Once determined the first team's side, the other team will instantly be acting as the opposite side. So just for repetition, for Taylor's University, if the coin lands on heads, the team will be the government. And if on tails, the team will be acting as the opposition. So for the opponents, will be instantly acting as the opposite side. So we hope everyone is clear on the instructions. We shall begin now. Shahida, you can. So heads. So we have landed on heads. So Taylor University will be acting as the government. Okay. All right. So.
Sorry, Chairperson. Just to double confirm, Taylor's will be government.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
So this will be the government. And UITM, Team UITM, Series Kandar will be the opposition side. Okay, so we hope every speaker is clear on their respective team side. So now 15 minutes will be given among each team speaker.
Hello, wait, excuse me. Can I ask something? I thought how did it work again? I'm sorry. Heads. I thought we were the one who chose heads just now because Taylor's chose tails, right? So I told you.
No, because we will be.
So how is it?
We determine the government and opposition sides using the coin toss.
Oh,
and
I
it
see.
depends on the Taylor's University. So if the coin lands on heads, the Taylor's University will become the government. So just now we did a coin toss and it lands on heads. So Taylor's is the government. So the opposite team will be the opposition, of course. Yeah. So good luck to everyone. Hope everyone is clear. Any more questions? If no, then 15 minutes will be given among all team speakers. Please note that the speakers must mute their microphones and turn off their cameras during the preparation time. Speakers may not try to communicate with the competing team in any way, shape, or form. The 15-minute preparation time starts now. Alright, so the preparation time has ended. Speakers, please turn on your cameras so that we begin. Okay, so before we can start the debate, the speakers for Taylor's University must state their speaker position. Can you type it in the chat? And also, it will can we have the speaker for the reply speech in the chat? Also, UITM Siri Iskandar, you have to state your speaker positions and the reply speaker in the chat. Speakers, can we have the speaker position in the chat? For the UITM team, can we have the reply speech? Okay, thank you very much. Give me a minute. Okay, so we shall begin. Good afternoon to the honorable educators, lecturers, debaters, ladies and gentlemen. Before we start our debate today, please mute your microphones to ensure there will be no disturbance to the floor of this debate. I would like all participants to turn on their cameras for this competition. I am Sarah Edna and I will be the chairperson for this debate session. Meanwhile, Nur Shahida will be the timekeeper for this debate. This House would like to call upon the motion that this House believes that unpaid internship should be against the law. Now, I would like to clarify the rules and regulations of this debate competition. For the substantive speech, the timekeeper will ring the bell at the end of the first minute to show that point of information, POI, can now be delivered. The timekeeper will ring once at the beginning of 6 minutes to show that time for POI is over. The timekeeper will ring twice at the 7th minute, after which the speaker has 15 seconds to conclude their speech. Then the timekeeper will ring continuously to show that time is over and any further explanation will not be taken into account. After both sides have presented their speeches, 3 minutes will be given to each team to prepare for their reply speeches. The opposition side will present their reply speech first, followed by the government side. A reminder, no new arguments and POIs are to be presented in the reply speeches. For the reply speech, the timekeeper will ring once at the end of 3rd minute to indicate that the speaker has 1 minute left to conclude their speech. And the timekeeper will ring twice at the fourth minute, in which the speaker has 10 seconds to conclude. And finally, the timekeeper will ring continuously to indicate that the time is over. All debaters are expected to have a reliable and good internet connection during this debate. Shall there be any unavoidable circumstances where debaters lose connection during their speech, 5 minutes will be granted for debaters to regain their connection. If debaters fail to gain connection within the 5 minutes, marks will be given according to how far they presented before the connection was lost. The sound check will be done now as I announce the speakers of each team. When your name is called, please test your microphones to ensure you are audible. Please inform the committee if there are any problem or technical issues. For Taylor's University, they will be acting as the government team with Mr. Justin as the Prime Minister.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Aloysius as the Deputy Prime Minister.
Yes.
Okay, and Ms. Jasmine as the government whip.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. Then for UITM, we'll be acting as the opposition team for this debate with Ms. Nadira as the opposition leader.
Yes, hello.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Arif as the deputy leader of opposition.
Hello?
And Ms.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. And Ms. Mira as the opposition whip.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I shall now introduce our adjudicators, Mr. Cyril and Mr. Kaviraj Shikar. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I call
Sorry,
upon...
Chair. Mr. Kaviraj won't be judging this round. He's in a different room. So it will just be me chairing. Yep.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you for letting me know. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I call upon the Prime Minister, Mr. Justin, to open the case for the government. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairperson. Jobs are so much more than just money. It's so much more than just about money, but it's about life. It's about enabling a person to live life to its fullest. It's about investing. It's about creating secure futures. It's about forming families, society, community. And it's about contributing to the society and the community that it came from itself. It is the very foundation that life builds upon. A very good afternoon to the House and to Chairperson, as well as the adjudicators, and also and my fellow teammates. Now, today's motion that we have is that this House believes that unpaid internships should be against the law. Now, I would like to define the motion in which internships refers to the position of a student or a trainee who works in an organization, a professional organization, in order to gain work experience. Now, illegal means that it is against the law itself. So why paying interns should be the way that all organizations carry out their internship programs. Paying interns is actually a form of investment. It is an investment towards to that employee, to that student, to that trainee, for it to secure and create his own future and life. It is an investment, ladies and gentlemen, and we are comparing human lives, human futures, families that would come with monetary value. How is this ethically correct? We're not supposed to measure a human life and its worth based on the money and say we would like to take a person's future or remove it just because that it costs too much for the company. Now, how is this strongly related to the student, or in this case, the intern's future? Now, based on statistics survey by NACE, is that 63% of paid interns land a job after their internship, whilst only 37% of those who are unpaid during their internship are able to land a job. Now, why is this crucial? A job is the first step for a person to enter into society and start contributing what they have learned, what they have acquired, the knowledge and the skills that they possess to the society and to create something of value. Now, if we do not treat this seriously and we do not look into it as a form of investment and also a form of great value, yes, please.
Are you suggesting internships as jobs rather than internship and a job being different?
No, I am saying that that internships eventually should lead to jobs, and based on the statistics that I've shown, that paid internships eventually bring greater chances to the job. And I believe that you have mistaken based on the definition that's given. Internship and training programs is actually based on companies that offer work. So I don't see the problem here. So back to a point that I'm saying, securing a job in the future is utmost important to a student and to the trainee and to the intern itself. So, because what's the point of joining an internship program without knowing and preparing for the future, if not preparing for the future? Now, preparing for the future and to secure it, the first step is to get a job that pays, a job that creates various opportunities, more opportunities for the student, for the intern themselves. This is important because we are investing. Companies should be investing into this because it is about the life of the student. It's about the life of the people of the company, and students' lives and future families will build upon this. And it's a very foundation of the society itself. We cannot have a functioning society without functioning families and without functioning individuals that are able to recontribute to the society. Now, this also creates a greater awareness among the companies as well, because companies also benefit from interns. It is not a company versus. Yes, please.
How does paying internships make them more eligible for to secure a job? How does that work behind the scenes?
All right, thank you for the POI. If you are just more patient, I will be explaining on that right away. So paying interns actually give them a better work experience, also give them greater job opportunities. Because imagine, if we don't pay interns, we will only be getting students that are already wealthy enough to support their own lives, wealthy enough to support themselves, the needs and the resources and the money that they need to carry on their normal life, and giving them just work experience. Now that really puts it into a small minority, privileged students, privileged enough to take care of themselves without any pay, and that is not what we want. We want more people to get the chance to actually develop themselves. We want people that cannot afford, previously could not afford to pay for a living, and once the company start, that they will be able to pay for their expenses because the internships are covered for, because the internships actually pay them. So we want these interns, and just through this way, not only the interns' future can be secured, and we are also opening up to a more diverse pool of applicants, more diverse pool of future employees for the companies. Now, companies also benefit from this. It is not a company versus intern case here, ladies and gentlemen. That companies can receive applicants with from more diverse areas where people, there are more students who previously couldn't afford unpaid internships, as I mentioned. Now that diversifying the talent pool itself actually benefits the company as well, because there's a more collaborative work experience and there's a more critical thinking that's going through the workforce. People can actually talk and communicate with people from diverse areas that are more creative, can interact with those who are more intellectual, and employees themselves, along with the company, can benefit from this overall experience. Now, this grouping of different skill sets by paying them actually forms a better work culture and work ethic, and can actually improve the company. Now, why is this important? It's because we are actually dealing with the future of the country, the future of the younger generations. With a good start, and with a paid opportunity to learn and to grow and to develop themselves and to build their future, we're offering protection to them and also secure so that they can perform better, and so that the law itself I don't see why the law shouldn't protect these benefits and guarantee that the students who enroll as interns in companies can receive such a privilege from companies and the intern programs. It will enrich their internship experience, it will enrich their learning experience, it will make them more ready for the future. and also you ensure that the nation, the entire nation, progresses along with its people and the companies that it houses, and not just individual people and individual companies. We want everyone. There's no difference between privileged class and also lower classes. No, we want everyone to be able to join for internship programs, to benefit from it, companies to develop with their interns, and the nation develop together as well. So to reinstate our motion that we strongly support, and we strongly support that the law should protect paid internship and make unpaid internships against the law. I rest my case. Thank you.
So thank you. Thank you, Prime Minister. The Prime Minister spoke for 7 minutes. Next, let us invite the opposition leader, Ms. Nadira, to state the opposition's objections with regards to today's motion.
Hello, hi, am I clear enough? All right, starting off, on-site opposition today, we are against the fact that unpaid internship should be against law. We're against the motion today for the fact that now, first of all, we agree with them that an internship is a position of a student or a trainee where they gain professional learning experience that offers meaningful practical work related and into the student's particular field. Now, at the same time, it should only be made illegal when it is not beneficial to the student. And in this case, what I mean by this, it would be in the case of where the students would be exploited. I will be mentioning on that further on later. But before that, before any of that, we do agree with them on their definition of internship. However, on site government today, they're making this internship seem more like a job, because we're putting students as interns. These students are the ones who are interns. Therefore, they're saying that like their livelihood depends on it. When students actually still depend on, let's say, government loans, like from PTPTN, they still depend on their parents for food, for shelter. They still depend on their parents, and they are still under the dependent of a person who is actually working. Now, okay, moving on straight to their own arguments, to the rebuttals towards their arguments, they're saying that they're giving this fact that paying students will eventually make them be able to land jobs better. Yes, they have given us this fact without a reason why behind it. I asked them already through my POI. Why? I want to actually know the answer to these questions. Why would a person who have been paid actually be able to land a job better? To think logically, anyone could ever think of it logically. A person who willingly does the job right just as much as a person who is paid, gaining the same amount of skill from that internship itself. That would have been a bigger deal because they're doing it solely for the skills, solely for them to actually know more about the field, which means the value behind them doing the internship itself is even better. Now, wouldn't that and somehow on-site government today, it seems to us like they are trying to say that internships are so great if they are paid, that the students should actually even pay to have internships that pay them. It's all contradictory to our side of the opposition today, because it seems to us that when the students are paid, they actually gain skills better. In the main reason why a person would take an internship is because they are dependent on that. Okay, now moving on straight in relation of their argument, my rebuttals to their argument, to my argument itself, is that students actually depend, the burden these interns carry. Now, in comparison to practicing architects who rely on the pay to actually support their families, to actually support their livelihood, interns, these students need to go through internships for them to learn. So in this case, one thing site government didn't mention is about the primary beneficiary of these interns. They are individuals or organizations who in first line need to receive benefits as a will in order for them to continue on with their studies in terms of this situation right here. Before that, any POIs from site government? No. All right, thank you very much. Now,
Sorry, POI, please. Sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
All right. Thank you for repeating the points that we have made, and I believe that you have made a mistake here. It seems that you are denying that internships can lead to a better job, and as if you're saying that you rather have no internships and no opportunities for a
no.
person to gain work experience just because there isn't a direct connection between internships and
All right.
jobs.
Thank you. All right, thank you. The internship actually trains people to get into job. Now, for many universities, for many courses, it actually requires a student to go through internship for them to continue on with their courses. So in terms of that, you're saying we don't think internships are important. Yes, on our side, internships are very important to the point that you don't even have to be paid for you to do internship, because doing the internship itself overpowers the fact that you have to be paid before it. Why? Now, people who actually get paid for their job are professionals. You are being trained to become that professional, which makes you even more required to become that professional itself. Now, for you to be paid, how good are you in comparison? Now, if you say they should be paid, let's say the minimum wage. Imagine a person who actually studied as long as you, went through the unpaid internship, same as you. Now they have to, they are gaining the same minimum wage as a person who isn't even qualified to the right amount. Now people usually go through internships when they haven't even finished their studies, so they have a lot more to learn through the.
POI, please.
Yes.
I believe you're making a huge assumption here, and I think it's obvious to everyone here that you're assuming that we are arguing for equal pay for interns as well as professionals, and I think that is very foolish. I think, of course,
Thank you
it's
very much.
ridiculous. So please clarify your point.
Thank you very much. In that term, then instead of saying that these interns should be paid rather than having this allowance, there's a difference between being paid and an allowance, and the side government didn't even mention this difference. There is a difference. If you were to be paid, you need to be paid within the minimum wage. Now, if an allowance, it would be a whole different case. Now, we're not going to touch upon that because the side government didn't even put that forth. So moving on. Now, they say paying is a form of investment to secure their lives. Now, these students, like I mentioned before, they are not dependent on that pay for their livelihood. They are dependent on the internship for them to continue their studies, to later on graduate, and to later on gain that professional certificate for them to work for that livelihood. So you're saying they're just degrading the value of the internship itself. The outside government is degrading internships, ladies and gentlemen. Interns are students in training. They rely on the internship in order to fulfill their learning and training needs. If not, they wouldn't be able to continue their studies. So for them to say that paid interns would eventually gain better jobs in the future, it's completely irrelevant, because then again, students who did the same amount of work would actually have more value, actually appreciation towards their jobs, unless you were to say that these interns who are paid do better jobs, which in many cases, they would continue on to be at par at the same level, unless they were treated and exploited differently. Now, with that, on-site opposition, we are against the motion today, and I rest my case. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Nadira. The opposition leaders spoke for 7 minutes and 10 seconds. To continue our debate today, I call upon the Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Aloysius, to counter the opposition's arguments.
Thank you, Chairperson. Now, good morning, good afternoon to the just opposition and the Chairperson and the timekeeper. Now, let's look at the arguments first, brought forth by the first opposition speaker. She said that internship gains meaningful experience, and this is something that I beg to differ. Let's be realistic, ladies and gentlemen. Let's look at the situation around you. By the time you graduate uni with that 3.5 GPA and you are knees deep in debt, you would wish that unpaid internship should be against the law. You are in your early 20s and you would now expected to work full-time for nothing, possibly in conjunction with his or her or your mediocre job that you sought to escape, totaling to, let's say, 60 hours a week. How is anyone supposed to gain meaningful experience when they are already so strung out in the beginning of your work career? Now, I'm not degrading the internship system as the first speaker had said, but I'm saying there must be some kind of reasoning here, denied. Now, the opposition is misguided in the speech that internship should be put on equal pay as professional workers. I think that needs no further explanation. That is something that I would simply not agree with. And another thing they said, and I think that she misunderstood, is the voluntarily of internships. We are living in a world that work requires experience and experience requires work. Now, allow me to enrich my first speaker with more material with my contention, which is that internships are giving unjustly free labor to for-profit entities. I think it's something that the opposition has severely misjudged and severely overlooked in their contentions. Furthermore, unpaid internships do not actually benefit from the underprivileged, do not benefit the underprivileged, and instead broaden the pay gap, which as a sensible government of a country you would not want. You would not have this running around in your country.
You are this.
No, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, unpaid internships in this sense can be boiled down to voluntary work. Now, I should note that I don't think volunteer work is illegal. Volunteer work is great. The difference is that volunteer work is generally for charity and internship is generally for for-profit entities. They are profiting of your free work. And if they are not profiting of the free work, then the position is largely unnecessary. I dare say that I'm open to hear about examples where such a position would be necessary and needs to be unpaid, which obviously I don't think is really the case. Therefore, this exploitation by companies has to stop. We are not running a charity, ladies and gentlemen. This is not an act of pride, an act of giving. This is a workplace, and by existing laws, for-profit entities should most definitely be paid. Now, I would like to maybe accept some of the POIs that was rejected just now.
Yes, thank you. Now, are these interns able to choose where they get to do the internship? And also one more, are these interns also students?
Now, if you look at the rebuttal that I gave to the first speaker, by the time you are out in the world, and especially if you don't have the connections such as rich people do, you are knees deep in debt, you don't have much choices there. Yes, you do. I do agree that there might be some choices, but they are severely limited. And by then, internship is so necessary in the work environment that it becomes something of an obligation, and it's something that they must do, which I think that it should be paid because you are working in an environment where you could easily be abused, easily be harassed. Moving on to my contention. Going to my point about, broadening the pay gap. Let's look at the situation that we have today, ladies and gentlemen. Half of all internships are unpaid, and the majority are obtained through personal networks. 53% of all student internships were obtained through personal networks, in fact. So it is not surprising that they are largely for the benefit of wealthier students with strong social networks and parental connections. Well, if you want to be an architect, you can as an internship for your father or your mother who is architect. This is the case for rich people, but it's not the case for a lot of underprivileged and poorer communities. The broader implication is that privilege multiplied by privilege is a snowball effect prejudice against students who come from working class or lower income circumstances. Because by shutting out these students from entry-level experiences in certain fields, the entire sectors will cause these long-term deficits of much needed talent, as my first speaker has said, and perspective. In other words, we are all paying the price for unpaid internships. Now, as a citizen of the country, would you want to live in that environment where the rich get richer by exploiting the personal networks and model that they already have, and the underprivileged even worse off by being not so lucky? Ladies and gentlemen, there has never been a better time to end this overused and outdated practice of exploiting young and gullible quote-unquote coffee-type interns for the sake of quote-unquote experience. I definitely argue that the unpaid internship should be against the law, and therefore I rest my case. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Aloysius, the Deputy Prime Minister. So for 5 minutes and 19 seconds. Next, I would like to call upon the Deputy Leader of Opposition, Mr. Ali.
Hello? Hi. Hi guys. Can you guys hear me clearly? Is it okay? All right. Okay. Hopefully you guys can hear me very clearly. Okay. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon. Good evening, I guess, to our chairman, fellow juries, and also honorable timekeeper and members of the floor. So, the motion that has been put forward for today's session, right, is that this debate, this house, believes that unpaid internship should be against the law. That's quite heavy, actually. And we opposition side, of course, naturally, we oppose this wholeheartedly. Okay. Now, I want to clarify to all of you, members of the floor, including my opposition team, that students are not all the same. I'm talking from experience of going to an internship and actually working, okay? And students are not all the same at all, and interns are not all the same. Okay, so I want to point out first and foremost that let's say members of the floor today, right? Members of the floor today and the juries support the law, okay? Support the motion, basically. They support the government side, right? Then by right, you're also supporting that students who do get paid, now we are in a world where students, all interns are getting paid, right? But don't perform as well as other students. Should they be receiving that payment? Do you think that's right? Right. I just want to point that out first and foremost, okay, before I go on to the rebuttals, okay? So first and foremost, I think the Prime Minister, right, he opened up with a sentence that I think I could hear quite clearly, hopefully I'm not wrong, with, he opened up about how jobs is more than just money, which encapsulates also about experience and more, right? If I'm not mistaken, okay? So then why does it seem that all members of the floor can clearly see and hear that the Prime Minister is stressing upon monetary value so much over the experience for the development of a certain subject or a certain intern? Doesn't it seem a bit confusing to all of you, right? So an intern, right, as a parallel to a job scope, let's say, underpaid internships, you will get a more secure job, right? So I think the Prime Minister has stated that underpaid internships, you will get a more secure job, right? Oh yeah, sure.
All right. That's a very nice statement, that opening statement that you brought forward. I would like to ask for clarification, because you do realize that your statement just now saying that all students are different and we shouldn't be paying underperforming interns in the same price. Doesn't that work vice versa? Shouldn't we be paying the hardworking interns instead
okay.
also?
That I shall get on later, okay? For my second argument, I think it covers that topic, okay? If you don't mind waiting, okay. Now, are you saying that if people are unpaid, that they do not get developed as people who are paid? Is that what you're being on? Now, the Prime Minister seems to stress on that so much, how the value of experience is the same as value as the monetary value that they're put forth. I don't really understand what's going on, because we do not deny that internships lead to good jobs. But if this is true, right, what does this have to do with monetary value? I'm sorry, we cannot seem to put that together. I thought internships and also work proposes that you receive the experience. How could you put these two things together? This is me coming from somebody who has experienced actual. How can you put these two things together? You see, are you putting a parallel to money and experience to be of the same value? That's clearly very, very wrong, right? Next, I think the Deputy Prime Minister, he talked about how internships does not give meaningful experience. Okay, yeah, sure.
I would like to question the speaker. Have you been paying attention to my second speaker? Because previously we have just explained how paying interns actually making it a compulsory thing actually opens up to more opportunities to people who are underprivileged. We spent a whole speech on it, and I think it's absolutely ridiculous that you are disregarding it.
I'm sorry, how does this open up more opportunities? Okay, I'll get onto this. I'll get onto this. Okay, so because the second Prime Minister talked about internships does not give meaningful experience, realistically, I remember the Deputy Prime Minister stated that internships does not give meaningful experience realistically. Okay, if we exclude the monetary value out of it, right? Now, actually, realistically, I beg to differ and say that it does give actually a very, very meaningful experience to me. Let's put aside the monetary value, okay, monetary issue. Okay, unpaid internships, right? I think the second Prime Minister also stated that unpaid internships also means that you don't really get that many connections, unlike rich people. So that's why we need paid internships. Unfortunately, that's not the case, ladies and gentlemen. Are we at internships as interns? Do we sit at our table? Do we work? Are we talking to a wall? I'm sorry. I'm missing that point. We're talking to our staff members at the firm. We're communicating. We're getting our connections. Is that right? So what does this have to do with rich people only getting the connections? I'm sorry, the government side, I really cannot see this very clearly. Okay, I'm sorry to say, but unfortunately, that's what we are seeing right now. Okay, why are you guys making this debate so narrow by saying that towards only rich people will get connections? And then the not so well off, unfortunately, suddenly has zero connections. Like I said, are we talking to a wall all of a sudden? We're working with people doesn't care about the monetary value. Okay, the monetary value, and you get paid, you don't get paid. It's the same thing. We're making connections at the firm, no, right? Now, the argument that I would like to bring forth, right, is that professionalism that is proposed towards the firm, okay? Acquiring some much needed professionalism, okay? Now, like I think my Prime Minister, my first speaker, sorry, has stated about professionalism, the experience that you bring forward in your intern firms, I have seen and I have heard and I know of people of my age who were interning together with me, who were interning and who are exploiting the firms themselves. You do know the current situation. You do know the current situation. We're in the pandemic, right? We're stuck at home doing our work at home, right? Virtually, right? That's one situation. And also, if you get to do your work at the office, it's fine. But then I know for a fact that a lot of people,
POI, please.
a lot of students, no, thank you. A lot of students, right? They don't take their work seriously. They don't bring that much experience to the table. They don't bring that much experience to the firm, right? So how does this justify suddenly the monetary value that has to be proposed to the interns, right? How? You fail to manage to propose that particular part. Because I've seen people, I've seen students, I've seen people who are working, who are not even working and they're getting paid. Is that morally right for you? Right. Then last, I'll be touching on that this is actually, internship is a part of our syllabus. We should treat this like this is a subject for our learning. This is our learning subject. Do you get paid for learning your subjects, your mandatory, your compulsory subjects at school, at university? Right, you don't. It's the same thing here. We fail to see and understand why suddenly also another thing, how that monetary value is the same value as our experience. That is something that the government has brought forth. And actually, it is true. My first speaker said it is very true. It is very degrading in that sense. And I hope members of the floor can see this very, very clearly, what the government is proposing towards the floor today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Arif. The Deputy Leader of Opposition spoke for 7 minutes and 3 seconds. Next, I would like to call upon the government whip, Ms. Jasmine. The floor is yours.
Salutations to the adjudicators, chairperson, timekeeper, my worthy opponents, and my fellow teammates. We as the government fully support and agree with the motion today, which is this House believes that unpaid internship should be against the law. My name is Jasmine, and I'm the third speaker from the government team, and I'll be rebutting all the statements given by the first speaker and the second speaker of the opposition team. Starting with the first speaker, I think they have stated that that unpaid internship is okay because students still depend on their family and study loan. I would say that this is some sort of bias. Firstly, because you can see there's actually a number of students that is working part-time job and extra job other than actually even when they are studying their degree in university to actually support their day-to-day living expenses, as well as additional fees that they might need to pay for their degree. So we do believe that for this unpaid internship, this is largely biased to the wealthier students who can support themselves without getting paid. Next would be, they also stated that the internship is required to go to the jobs, but if they can't afford to go for an unpaid internship, how are they supposed to get a job without an internship? So they also stated that yes.
Once again, I ask, are they capable of choosing where they get to do their internships?
Okay, so if you could choose, that would be a bias. So I would say that we would actually give them an equal rights for people, because if you get to choose, it means there is some sort of connection within it. So I believe that the wealthier and the underprivileged students should receive the same amount, the same access to all this internship. And we do believe and agree that interns should not get paid as equal as these professional workers, as they require more attention and also training in their internship. But we do believe that they should receive an amount of salary to at least support their living expenses if we are talking about these underprivileged students. And it doesn't defeat our points whether it is mandatory or by choice. Next is, they also stated that some sort of experience. Yes.
I just want to ask. So you said that people people who get paid these internships, right? The people who cannot support their livelihood, right? So how about people who are middle class? Should they receive the paid internships also?
Yes, because we are. I mean, it will be some sort of bias to the to the students if we just give all the underprivileged. So I do think that all the students who are going for internship should have some sort of payment. And one more thing is, if we do internship without paying them, it actually lost an aspect of kind of like a job aspect. So meaning that if we actually give them like a salary, they could actually learn how to manage their money, which is also a part of being independent and actually being out there in the world and see how the society actually works. Okay, I think they say that we focus more on monetary value rather than experience. I would really disagree with this statement, because we prioritize experience, but if the students don't have the access or the capability to apply for it, then how are they going to get all the experience? So by actually giving them salaries, we are actually encouraging, no thank you, we are actually encouraging them to actually apply, so that, as my Deputy Prime Minister has stated, that it allows us to offer to a larger group of students rather than only on the wealthier side or people with connections. So we are trying to actually have an equal opportunity to all the students, not only the wealthier, but also the underprivileged, so that they could also have the same amount of chance and they would not hesitate in applying just because they worry about how are they gonna survive throughout the internship. And they also stated that I think they missed one of our points, which is they say that internships still do have connections. They can actually have connections by talking to all the staff and people that at their firm and so. But the point that we as the government are bringing up is the connection before they get an internship, meaning that if we still go with this unpaid internship, so people on the wealthier side, people with connection, people with privilege could actually use that connection to actually get the internship. Because once you get the internship, it shouldn't be a matter of, connection is not an issue. We are talking about connection before they actually get the internship. And so I would really like to understand what do they mean by rebutting us on this point. And they also stated that, yes.
Considering the interns would have to be paid once they get the internship, how is that in relation to before they're getting the internship itself? Wouldn't that be irrelevant?
Before they're getting their internship, they are studying. In a way that they will be investing, the time where they study and internship, the attention, I would say, the energy required is much more different. So they might have to focus more, they might have a more workload rather than actually studying. So I do think that this is very vital to the government side. And the second speaker also stated that students are not all the same and interns are not all the same, meaning that if they don't perform, they stated that if they don't perform well, do they get the same amount of pay? I don't think that the amount of pay should be equal to how well do they do. I think that, and one more thing is, we are talking about interns right here. So they would have a superior who would actually see and overlook all their work. So they will get all the feedback and stuff. So I don't think that they would not perform well, but instead they would have like observation from the higher up to ensure that all their work will be up to the quality. And with that, we as the government fully support and agree with the motions today, which is this House believe that unpaid internship should be against the law. And with that, I would like to rest my case.
Thank you, Ms. Jasmine, for the points given. The government whip spoke for 6 minutes and 56 seconds. Next, I would like to call upon the opposition whip, Ms. Mira, to present her case.
Hello, can everyone hear me? So let me begin with my rebuttal for the government team. So the first speaker of the government team stated about the statistic of students with paid internship have better opportunity to secure a job. However, they failed to explain exactly how this interns, these paid interns, able to secure the job. And then he further say, he proceed into saying something about students with unpaid internship to be privileged. But that still does not explain how paying these students gives better opportunity to secure jobs opportunities. I do not see the relevance behind the statistic given. And then they also mentioned that these students are reliant on this to this payment for their livelihood. You see, we need to remember that these students receive PTPT and also many other loans and scholarship to support their studies. And okay, again, what is studies? Internship is also a part of studies. It's a part of your degree. So PTP and also these other student loans are there to support your livelihood as a student. And then the second speaker
POI,
also,
please.
yes.
So are you meaning to say you don't see the meaning behind my statistic, which is 53% of all student internships were obtained through personal networks? Please clarify.
I stated that because the government team failed to say how does this these interns that is getting paid get more job? How does getting paid give you better job opportunity? Does the company that takes graduates look into your interns and say, oh, this person get paid during the internship, so they are better, so we need to get them to work with us. Is that how? So again, that's why I stand. So continue on. The second speaker also mentioned that this intern worked for nothing, when in fact interns actually gains more benefit than the company itself. We need to remember that this company hold great risk by taking these interns working for them. These interns are not professionals. They have no working experience. They are bound to make great mistake, like losing clients, which could make this company lose money and important projects. We also need to remember that these companies spend time to train these students. Time is money, and now in the pandemic era, the company actually gain more risk when they take these interns. The interns load are now lessened because of the pandemic. Imagine this: if the government succeeded into making the unpaid internship should be against the law. The unpaid internship should be against the law. I think that the company around Malaysia would refuse to take interns, because in this pandemic area, a lot of companies are suffering from losses. They are losing, for example, in the architecture business itself, the big company, those remarkable companies are not getting big projects anymore. Now they are competing with the small companies in order to get these small projects. And then now that they have to carry the burden of paying internships, I think these companies will refuse to take interns if that is the requirement, especially those big companies. Because these big companies are the ones who are going to give the most benefit to the students. If they have to pay and this big company is not going to gain anything, they are going to refuse. So now, yes, POI.
Thank you for accepting the POI. Now, you have mentioned how interns can benefit from the internship program. Companies train them, trainees actually train them to develop their skills during the internship. And we also mentioned, maybe indirectly, maybe you did not understand that how internships lead to better job placements. So aren't you defeating your own point now that you keep saying that we did not justify the point?
Okay, we need to remember, despite paying or not paying these interns, the company is still giving these interns trainings. So again, I do not get it, because even if they are not paying these interns, they are still getting trained to be professionals, to be for their internships. Okay, and then the government team also mentioned about connection. we need to remember that not only the rich and the privileged get connection. Do you know that the government of Malaysia itself today have made many programs to allow students as young as 17 years old to create these said connections? For example, the program Kepimpinan Tun Razak itself, that's they call upon these underprivileged students to come to this program and meet a lot of, for example, the directive of the
QI, please.
CIMB itself. Yes, continue.
Won't you say that the existence of this program further solidifies our point that it should be illegal because they have to make this program in order to provide more connections? What is your point?
Having connection, even if you like, okay, you see, how does paying these students will allow them to get this connection? You see, even, okay, let me explain. Now you understand that there are programs that provide students to get connection. Even without this connection, students are able to choose whether they want to go for internships that are paid or unpaid. There's a lot of internships these days that provide payments actually. Students are now open to choose whether they want this paid internship or if needed. So there's actually no necessary for you to have connection, because even without connection, you can still get internship with this pay, because there's a lot of paid internship out there. And then the third speaker mentioned that interns need to be paid to learn to be independent with their money, to manage their money. They seem to forget that students get loans, as I said before, and they learn to manage those loans. So it's not the company's responsibility to teach these students about money management. With that, I raise my case.
Thank you, Ms. Mira. The opposition whip spoke for 7 minutes and 11 seconds. Now 3 minutes will be given to both teams to prepare for their reply speeches, and the time starts now.
Yeah.
your 3 minutes to start. Ladies and gentlemen, this debate will resume with the reply session. Let us now invite opposition team to sum up the case for today's debate.
Hello, hi. Can you guys hear me quite clearly? Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Okay, so Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Again, good evening to all of you, members of the floor, fellow adjudicators and honorable timekeeper. So I, opposition side, will try my best to wrap up what has been going on between the government side and also opposition side in my reply speech for today. Okay, now first and foremost, like we said before, okay, the opening from the government, from the Prime Minister, he kept on pushing on how monetary value is actually the same with the value of experience, which we beg to differ. Is really never the same. Okay, monetary value cannot be put on the value of experience because experience is very different, and it's something quite subjective with what you receive with value of the money, which you can see in front of your eyes, right? So these things are very subjective, and they cannot be put on the same level and cannot be put on the same parallel. Okay, unfortunately. And also the government side, unfortunately, has also stated that unpaid internships lead to students being underdeveloped. And we can hear that very clearly. Where we don't see the relevance is that as even, let's say you get into a good firm, you have the connections, you get into a good firm that does provide a very good experience. But unfortunately, they do not provide paid internships. Then how about that situation? Right? So that's why we keep on repeating that the monetary value is not the same with the value of experience. It's never the same because these two things are on a very different world. One is subjective, one is concrete. Okay. Now we even have professional workers, like my first speaker has stated. We even have professional workers with really lots of experience that still get underpaid due to they still get the minimum wage. So how does this justify paying interns who have little to no experience? Also being paid, basically. Does this seem fair and justify the situation? Shouldn't the monetary value, the payment, go to providing the people with actual permanent jobs? Right? Doesn't this seem more fair of a world to you guys? Right? Now, interns are basically, like we stated, opposition side, are students in training. They rely on internship to fulfill their learning and also training needs. Like I said, it's according to our syllabus. We are not paid to learn from our subjects from, let's say, semester 1 to semester 5. Suddenly, semester 6, we have this subject, it's called internship, right? Suddenly, why are we getting paid for doing this? It's just a subject that we're going through. It's in the syllabus. And then I remember the third speaker talking about how the rich people getting more connections before they get into the firms, right? I beg to differ. This is very wrong and it's just outright lying because each and every one of the students in the campus, right, are supervised by our very own supervisors, by our very own lecturers who supervise us, okay? So basically, the supervisors, the lecturers, they can provide the context to internships for their intern opportunities. Let's say if I don't get into an internship, oh my God, where do I go? I go ask my supervisor. My supervisor gives me the contact. Okay, Arif, you can go contact this firm, go contact that firm. If you don't get this firm, you can contact that firm until the student gets into the internship firm and fulfill their training. So we fail to see what's the problem here. Why do you have to be rich first to get the connections to get into a firm? You see what I mean? And then as the third speaker talked about basically this, and she went on, and basically the government side talked about how monetary value affects the strata, basically, how only rich people can get the connections to settle and to secure a firm placement. While we beg to differ, it's simple. We each have our own supervisors that if we do not get into this firm A, then our supervisors will provide with us a contact to firm B. It's very simple. We don't understand why this is such a big problem. And we can clearly see government side is pushing on this on and on, this big problem, which seems to be settled with something that is already pre-existing. It's very simple solution. And hopefully members of the floor and also fellow adjudicators can see clearly who should be winning today's debate. Thank you for listening to the speech.
Thank you, Mr. Arif, for summing up the opposition team. Lastly, we welcome the government team to sum up their case for today's debate.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the reply speech from the opposition team. And I really think the first opening part of the reply speech, as it sounds as if the speaker himself is on the government side, and I really thank him for that. I really like to see, I really like to hear that when he points out all the problems that unpaid internship actually leads to, and why further reaffirms at our point on how making paid internships mandatory is the right way for our country's future, and not just the country and not just the company, but the individual future of that student. I would like to say again that our stance is that we really want, we support the motion that unpaid internships should be illegal, and we should make paying interns mandatory. And it's because we believe that paying interns, the internship program, is actually building on a person's life. It's not just a career, it's not just a job, it's not just paying a person, it's not just that simple. It's building lives, it's building families, it's building the nation in general. It is the very first step, or the first start, or lifting the legs of the first step. It is a preparation for work. Now, the opposition is obviously the side that is trying to weigh all this importance on monetary value, seeing all this through the lens of money and corporate lenses. And I think they are trying to pinpoint this on us, and I think it's very foolish. It's because they are always comparing the interns to money, whether this person is performing up to the pay, whether the person is eligible for such a pay. Should professionals who are underpaid be paid as the same? I think this is plainly foolish, and I think he's trying to push that all of us might as well be poor together, might as well work voluntarily together. I think this is just the general gist of what he's trying to say. And I think that we are looking into not just the monetary value. We do not look at each individual employee just through how much it is worth, how much money this person is worth. No, we are looking at how much this person can bring to himself, to his kids, to his wife, and to his family, to the company, and not just that, to the nation itself. From a student's point of view, it is to start a preparation for entering the workforce. And imagine, put yourself in the shoes of an underprivileged person, someone who cannot afford studies, who relied only on scholarship to maintain the entire degree studies. And once when he's coming to internship, he's countered by this problem that he cannot support himself. He cannot support himself enough and his expenses, just because now he's working almost as if he's voluntarily working for charity, something that he has paid his studies for, and he's in debt. How can that be? And as a company, and he has no model to start off working once he has completed his studies. Now, this is something we can avoid by paying them during their internship and making it legal, making a mandatory process. Now, as a company, it is also very beneficial. You're basically employing your future employees right away. You are giving them a secure future. You're giving them security, a sense of confidence that the company will use them. The company will bring them and develop them as a person to the future. You're looking in to the long run. And I think that's very important for each company to make sure that they do and to apply to their working processes. And I think this will lead to a better nation, which is obviously what the government who plans the law, who states the law wants, because it's developing young generation, is developing the nation, is developing the future of the society on which the government builds upon. It is very important for the government to recognize this problem and to see that actually statistics, 63% of paid interns can land a job. Do we want to lose this? Do we want to lose? Instead, we should have, as a government, we should actually make this a mandatory process and make sure all interns are paid, so that they have equal opportunity, they have equal access for all students who go through this internship program to be able to learn and to be able to develop themselves as a person and to contribute to the country itself. And I believe that the opposition fails to recognize the importance of paying them from the start, and to build and to open up to underprivileged students who are of utmost potential to the country, none lesser than the privileged students as well. So that I support again the motion, which is that we think unpaid internships should be illegal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Justin, for summing up the government's case. Ladies and gentlemen, with that marks the end of the debate today. Honorable adjudicators will be directed to another breakout room for 10 minutes to decide the winner of this debate.
All right, I'm ready. Sorry for the delay. So, okay, is everyone ready? Is government here? Is opposition here?
I think so.
We're here.
Yes.
All right, everybody here. Okay, so this is how I'll be giving my OA, oral adjudication. Firstly, I'll be giving you all a general feedback from what I got from this debate and what I expected to be better, and then the results, and then the reasoning behind the verdict. Okay, is that cool? Okay. So first and foremost, I think the biggest advice I would want to give, regardless if it's for just this tournament, but in general for future debates, for future rounds, or like general any tournament, I would advise both sides to be more respectful of your opponents and more polite. I think this debate went a bit offhand in terms of respect. It became too wild. I think being aggressive is good and really helps the persuasive thought, but being too aggressive isn't advisable. Second level is, I think this debate focused on a lot of irrelevant issues. A lot of the important areas were brought up, but left as just a one-liner, while all the other important issues were, all the unimportant issues were a lot analyzed to a point that I had a really big question, which I don't think I should have at the end of the debate, which was, what is an internship? I think throughout the debate, it was very messy. I think there was a lot of inconsistency in team cases and a lot of contradiction on both sides. So it was very hard for me to follow what the flow of the debate was, what was the direction a team is taking, or what are the objectives a team is trying to achieve in this debate. Second thing is I need more characterization to what internships now look on your world. If internships are going to be forced to, if companies are going to be forced to pay for them, or how internships look like if companies are not going to pay for them. And if that's the case, who offers internships and what are the qualifications for individuals to even achieve an internship in the first place? I don't think it's as easy as just because I'm an 18-year-old, I'm automatically eligible for internships, right? I think there's a little more qualification of a background check to who you are and what you require. So all these things were very lacking. And the last question I had was, how big a responsibility do companies have when giving out internships? Is this something that they are doing voluntarily for the benefit of individuals in the future, or is this something that the government is just pushing on them to take regardless of the economical situation? There wasn't sufficient clashes on those areas. And all of a sudden, I don't know why this became a segregation debate. I think I would advise both sides in future debates, gov or op, bite the bullet, take the hardline stance, and just say yes, they deserve it, no, they don't deserve it. I think taking a hardline stance, especially, would have been much better in this debate, because at some point it became okay, we give in to this, we want to take this, we want to win everything. I don't think in debates you can win everything. When you want to debate, if you want to win your objective, just like life, if you want to be successful, there needs to be a trade-off, something that you are willing to risk, right? So I think the obvious trade-offs would be if government is going to force companies to pay, the trade-off is that less companies are going to offer job opportunities. And in opposition, your trade-off is you have more companies opening up internships, but there's some level of exploitation that's more likely to occur now. Okay, because there's no real accountability. So then that needs to be a trade-off. Although the trade-off seems very risky, that's when you justify the debate why those trade-offs are reasonable and why is in this case there is still an alternative option. Okay, so with all that being said, after lots of thinking, very messy debate again, better structure please next time teams, I gave the win to side government. Okay, so here are the reasons why. Because it's an Asian parliamentary debate, I would have to look at what both teams presented and compare on clashes. All right, so there are a few clashes and these clashes I had to technically, they weren't obvious. I had to really pull out the elaborations given and the analysis to what extent you guys achieved this, right? Because in the end, it was coming to the end like, okay, both sides had this objective. Whose links, logical links, were more practical on achieving, or who's more realistic on achieving these things? So the first clash I had was, how do you value what internships are? Do you value based on the experience that you obtain from the company, or do you value it based on the money that you gain? And the reasoning behind your metrics of valuation, right? I think at some point in opposition, there was something that says, we only think, we only like think that is unlawful only if companies were to exploit. And I think that wasn't, okay, there wasn't like a proper justification to why that's the case, right? It was an opening lines. I think a lot of those opening lines to how to value internships were very contradictory and very confusing, because either you guys didn't tie it back to your speeches, you left it afloat just there directly, or it was just said to make it nicer. So I couldn't really see any relation, but I thought this brought a lot more harm to speeches. Okay, next clash was who protects interns better, because I think in this debate, especially this debate, right, there are two big stakeholders generally, interns and companies. Who's at a bigger risk, who can deal with those risks better, and who's gonna be like even more exploited. So from Gulf, I think I heard, okay, I think it wasn't like one clear statement, was again in under some level of elaboration where PM stated these interns already putting their lives at stake by contributing to a company where there are already possibilities of them getting harassed and getting bullied and exploited. But you see, I needed reasoning to why that was harmful for these individuals, and why it's harder for individuals to either like resign from these jobs, or why they can't afford to resign. And even if they wanted to say something, their voices are not going to be heard by multinational companies because the corporations are so big in the stake. All these reasonings was just like a one-liner thing. From opposition, you guys won on the clash on what's best for firms, because you guys said there will be lazy workers. Lazy workers don't deserve this pay, and most of the time interns already like busy a lot of life stuff and all. They're just coming from this like so-called experience, it's already justified enough. But my question then was, if let's just say you are already a lazy intern, I think it's equal to any other job, right? If you're someone who's lazy and like incapable of doing a job, you're most likely going to get fired. Why is it then that these interns are still in those jobs and still exploiting firms? I think firms have higher cohesive power in terms of like kicking them out or like firing them. If firms are not doing that, then I think the firms are allowing exploitation to happen, or supervisors are just ungood in your world. So that reasoning to why a lot of, okay, you see, but then I think the justification that could have came from opposition was, you see, if firms try to like fire them all of a sudden, firms get backlash from community, because, oh, you're just like exploiting, instead of improving that intern, you're just firing them. That's worse for the firm. So the firm is actually in a stuck position that they cannot fire, or they cannot like try to improve, because trying to improve, this guy is not listening, right? So firms are going to get a bad name. That's worse off for them. But regardless, I think there was very little response from government to why firms are going to come off as like good actors or bad actors. But I did credit when Gulf said, because firms are going to enrich people in the future, and I saw like, okay, because of the enrichment of the future, firms will get some level of good support from community for like supporting welfare of families, right? Especially like you guys really protected underprivileged interns. So if you protect underprivileged interns, you're also then giving some level of better welfare for these families, which is something I could credit for. But again, a lot more analysis on those areas, right? Fourth clash. How dependent are interns on the salary being paid? Is this something that they're just getting as a pocket money to go to canteens in college to eat? Or is this something they're going to put their livelihoods on for? And I think opposition's response is very convenient, because I think it's very unfair to say that all interns will only rely on their family's fundings or loan, PTPTN loan. Because realize that in status quo, even to achieve PTPTN loan, there's so many requirements that you have to be able to achieve first. Some people just can't get PTPTN loans because like maybe there is no way that your family is going to pay back in the future, and there's going to be too much of a debt for the government to pay for all poor people to go, right? Which is why you need to get some level of money to at least show the government that you can pay back for these loans, because loans have to be paid back at some point. And I think this was brought up in second speaker as well. Like, sure, you get like all these free things, but you graduate happily, You come out, you have like a huge debt, and you had to work for 60 hours, like 60 hours per week. But you see, that's it. That's the only response I got. I needed like the burdens to why the poor is never going to achieve this and why the government is going to be less incentivized to like give you more loans. In the long run, you won't get any form of support now in terms of monetary value because all these internships are like charity work. Push on why being charitable in terms of this firm is worse. You know? So okay, for opposition, in terms of this response, right? Say, look, regardless of what, the money you get from internships now isn't going to be sufficient for any form of payment back. Okay. The risk here is if you ask for a higher pay, okay, you guys brought up professionals getting paid. They're already paid on a minimum wage. That's good. Very smart analysis, right? If the professionals themselves are being paid so low, why do interns who are like so a bit like so risky deserving that pay? So you want go on to say, like, this is the premise I would say, right? If you are an intern under these firms and you try to request for a higher pay just because you do better than your other intern, you're going to get kicked out because, okay, look, we can't pay your bills, you go find a different firm. But you try to justify it, right? Like, oh, I need to pay my debts, man. You know, like the boss doesn't give a damn because the boss is going to say, I'm giving you experience, that's all you need. You want all that money because the experience I give you. So for example, right, you guys brought up a really good example, which I thought you should have like went on more. If I'm a rich, big corporation, for example, you're a lawyer, right? You work like under a big law firm, but for free. Sure, you still come out with that debt. Okay, you want to go for, but here's the different comparative, right? In opposition's world, this individual now has a good track record of working under a really big firm. So you may more likely get, although after graduation, you won't be able to pay those debts, but in the working time, instead of like working 60 hours per week, you can work like now just 40 hours per week because of your good track record. So you're still able to clear those debts, and this is a more practical solution on clearing debts because this whatever money or salary you get from these internships isn't sufficient. So might as well you go for free now, and you come out get a good job because the track record will give you, and then you achieve this. But why does that track record not also achieve in government sites? Because you try to request too much, and these firms think you're too arrogant, egoistic, which is what the status quo is, right? Most adults think we teenagers or like we postgraduates are too egoistic with our status, correct? So they're not going to hire us, and that's even worse. We don't get any form of track record, and it's going to be harder for us to build a portfolio in terms of interviews in future. So the last clash I really couldn't like justify why it was relevant to debate was discourses that occurred. Why is the discourse before these jobs going to be relevant, or why does this discourse already exist in firms that are like good or bad? So this discourse, I think I only credited to what Gulf Whip told me. Gulf Whip told me if you're a poor person, you don't have any connections to talk to. That's going to be difficult for you. So I think the fact that because they only kept focusing on the underprivileged and nobody from opposition took why it's not just the underprivileged that's affected, she got away with it. So next time, if like, they try to bring up underprivileged, because you see, advice for future debates, right? If somebody tries to bring very vulnerable stakeholders, that if you try to attack them, you sound bad, don't attack them, but rather say why you defend most stakeholders in this debate rather than just the poor people. Sure that they are the most vulnerable, but if you just care for them, everybody else, be it the middle class people who are also struggling to some extent, like okay, M40 people, right, who's also in like the lower part of M40 will also struggle out of this debate. So we opposition defend them better than them. You know, you all cannot let them get away with statements like defending the underprivileged, because it will bring a huge impact to debates like this. Okay, so out of all these clashes, again, it still came to practicality to how the angles were, but the practicality needs to be pushed on by you guys, like not just the judges, because sometimes it's going to be very difficult, very messy. Okay, but regardless, good quarterfinals debate, commiserations to opposition and congrats to government, and all the best for semifinals. So I hope that was good. If you need more feedback, you can text me on WhatsApp. I'm still open to giving personal feedback to everyone. So yeah, thanks guys for the debate. Thank you, chairperson. Thank you, timekeeper. Okay, I don't know what we should be doing from here onwards, but
Okay, so with that ends the quarterfinal round, room 2 of today's debate. Thank you very much to the educator. We congratulate the winning team and extend our gratitude to the honorable educators as well as the committee. Thank you, everyone. Important note for the winning team. Okay, so for the winning team of this round, please stay back in the Zoom session so that we can have a test run for semifinals tomorrow, because we will be using Gather Town. So, yeah. So thank you very much, everyone.
Cha, is semifinals tonight or tomorrow?
It's tonight. If
Tonight, right?
Yeah, tonight. If you look at the tentative, supposing tonight, the semifinals. Tomorrow is only the final.
Okay.
Anyway, congrats to the winner.
Congrats,
So
Taylor.
after like
Thank you.
second round of debate with you guys.